Hi everybody, it's Kathy Syrett from the Confident Leader Journey here. And as part of the occasional series I'm doing where we look at some theoretical approaches that are useful when we're looking at leadership, especially being confident in our leadership, today's vlog we're going to look at the research and work of Howard Gardner. That's Gardner. He produced a book in 1983 called Frames of Mind. And the powerful thing about this book is that until he wrote this book, the general public largely accepted the idea that intelligence could simply be measured through an IQ, an intelligent quotient test. Whereas Gardner's book, which was subtitled The Theory of Multiple Intelligences, popularized the idea that IQ only measures one type, or possibly two types of intelligence, and that there are in fact multiple types of intelligence. So this book is interesting because it was one of the first publications and pieces of research that explored cognitive diversity, which, as we know, and I've looked at in a previous blog, is now been shown to have significant positive results and impact on organizations. So it's a useful book to read, but let me just summarize that what he explored was that there are 7 different types of intelligence. So let me go through this. And as I'm talking, have a think about yourself and members of your team and where you might put yourself on this. Okay. So he claims that all human beings possess a unique blend of these 7 intelligences. So it's almost like you can kind of do a map of them, and that's your overall intelligence. It's not that we only have 1 or 2, we have a blend of all 7. And this impacts how we view the world. And that's why he called the book Frames of Mind, because these frames of mind are the totality of how these 7 intelligences show up in us. Okay, so let's have a look at these. So he looks at, first one he looks at is linguistic intelligence. So this is the appreciation of language, the ability to learn new languages, and the capability to use language to accomplish goals. So you might think about persuaders or storytellers. And using humour to advantage is a sign of linguistic intelligence. Okay. Second one he talks about is logical mathematical intelligence. And this is one that the traditional IQ test tends to show up quite a lot. This is about analysing problems, carrying out mathematical operations, and approaching subjects kind of scientifically and logically. So included in this is the ability to detect patterns, reason deductively, and think logically. So it really is one of the core elements of a standard IQ test, as is the linguistic one when you do the word matching. So let's have a look at the other intelligences, and then we'll explore the implications of these for us as leaders. So musical intelligence. So people with musical intelligence actually think in terms of sounds, rhythms, and musical patterns. So it can be obviously musicians, singers, composers, music critics, but musical intelligence also shows up in looking at those rhythms and patterns of what we do, and can be present in almost anybody. So if you're something who you can look at the rhythm of something, the patterns of talking, that could be the pattern from logical mathematical, or you could be using your musical intelligence to identify that. If you're skilled in recognizing the tone of voice that people are using in their communication, again, that could be your musical intelligence coming into play there. The next one he talked about is bodily kinesthetic intelligence. So this involves the ability to control and coordinate complex physical movements and to express ourselves in movement. So the simplest examples of this would be people actually doing extreme physical movement for their jobs, like sports people, actors, jugglers, and gymnasts. How about other ones where coordination and balance are important, like firefighting? But also, how about jobs where body language is important, either performing it or reading it? That could also be bodily kinesthetic intelligence at work. The next one was visual spatial intelligence. So It is what it says. It's the ability to perceive objects in space accurately, to have an idea of where things could go. If you know anybody who can just, literally picture what a house would look like after it's renovated, they've probably got a high score on visual spatial intelligence. So sculptors, architects, interior designers, navigators, engineers, people who are good at getting from A to B and can visualize the route. That's someone who's using their visual spatial intelligence. And then the last two. The first one is interpersonal intelligence. That's the capacity to understand other people's objectives, motivations, and desires. I mean, obviously that's instrumental in building relationships. And intrapersonal intelligence. Now this is the ability to understand the self with a heightened awareness of your own feelings and motivations. Now, those of you who know me will know that one of my favorite sayings is self-awareness is a prerequisite for self-management. And so, to me, intrapersonal intelligence is a critical one for being a leader, as is interpersonal. Okay? So the intrapersonal helps us build an effective model of ourselves, and so therefore we can regulate ourselves. And then the interpersonal enables us to create that model of how other people work so that we can interact with them effectively. Interestingly, we can have a think about what are the implications of having these different intelligences. Okay? And fundamentally, Gardner's book kind of changed the map of the world when it came to looking at intelligence. It opened the door for the later works on emotional intelligence that came into play. But it's an awareness of this cognitive difference that everybody has. Okay, how can we as leaders use that? Well, interestingly, let's think about this. Typically in organizations, the logical mathematical intelligence is highly prized. Systems, processes, approaching things logically. However, looking for rhythms, using the musical intelligence to look for rhythms in things could be critical in marketing and customer analysis. The bodily kinesthetic intelligence could be key in terms of interpreting, reading, and using appropriate body language in meetings in order to influence people. The visual spatial intelligence is crucial in a lot of business operations. Can you actually visualize how things will fit? And these don't have to be actual physical objects in space. It could be in conceptual space as well. And then, of course, the interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligences are key. Now, one of the question marks about this is, are these different intelligences learnable? And in fact, some later research was looking into that. And Gardner's posit was that all of these intelligences are to some extent able to be developed. You can learn to think logically. You can learn to think musically. There'll always be some innate element. You might have a preference for one style over another, but you can learn to appreciate and turn the switch and amp up different intelligences in different environments if you want to. Fundamentally, one of his main points, I think one of the main lessons from his book, is really about not worrying about measuring up on any IQ test, but knowing who we are, where we are, how we think, how others think, and being able to cope with that as a leader. So if I've got someone in the team, what kind of intelligence are they using most when they're successful in their role? What intelligence do they find most challenging to use? And how can I use that insight and knowledge to have conversations with them about how to enhance their work life, how to enhance the performance, and how to get the most out of them and the organization? So it's actually considered one of the classics because it was one of the first books that explicitly challenged the traditional concept of the IQ test. Bringing up the idea of multiple intelligences was one of the first published accounts looking at cognitive diversity. And I recommend looking at that book specifically for that reason, because it was the beginning of the exploration of different kinds of intelligence, the importance of different types of ways of thinking, ways of analysing, and that awareness that we all have different strengths in how we look at things. And of course, one of the cores of leadership is not trying to make everybody think in the logical mathematical or linguistic mode, but actually being able to optimize how people already think, and take how they think and build that together into something greater as part of a team. Okay, so frames of mind, multiple intelligences, something else to think about in your role as a leader. So the vlog will be up and there'll be blog articles on it as well. So if you prefer reading, you'll be able to find that. And you'll find the links to those on the Confident Leader Journey community, which is the Facebook group that supports the Confident Leader Journey. All right, hope to see you there. Take care.